the theme for the month of November is living as compassionate conduits. And the theme for this week is, and it's kind of interesting wording, how engaged is God as us? You know, is life, love, God, spirit, is that living out its perfect life as you? It is knowing more of itself as you, the way that spirit brings forth your values in a world that works for everyone is through you. And of course, my question is, if spirit is living you, are you living spirit? So this has to do with a kind of ongoing living a joyous and fulfilling life. Are you that conduit through which God is expressing, through which the larger life is expressing? And there's a common question, in casual conversation, how are you doing? And we kind of ask ourselves that in different ways this morning. How are you doing? And I notice now I sometimes just give a pat answer, and it really has to do with the circumstances or the context in which that question is asked. There are going to be certain contexts in which that question is asked of me or I ask of others, where there's almost an expectation of a different response. For example, if I'm sitting with my practitioner and the practitioner asks how I'm doing, I'm more inclined to share something that is a little deeper. It's below that surface layer of, oh yeah, everything's good. Yeah, I'm fine, and you? That would make for a fairly short practitioner session, and it would be a short prayer as well. But, how often, even in a casual setting, I'm asked that question. And what I do now, even though I might give the pat answer, is I still check in with myself. Meaning, how am I doing? Oh, yeah, how am I doing? Am I in this, am I being this compassionate conduit in this moment? Or have I somehow moved away from being that compassionate conduit in this moment? So even that question, though your answer might be, I'm fine and you, still might be that opportunity for you to check in. Now, as I've mentioned many times, we're gathered here this morning to feel better about some part or aspect or all of our life, whether it's something inward, something to do with our relationships, something to do with our jobs or careers, something to do with physical health and well-being, something to do with our abundance or our prosperity. I think what has attracted me on at first to a spiritual walk was there was really something crying out in me to to feel better, for there's to be something better, my life to be better than what it was in that moment. And if you can just walk with me another step and saying, well, yeah, we're all here to feel better in some way, then is there a resistance to that, or is there maybe a defensiveness around it? Now that could mean a couple of things. It could mean that there is a perception that your life is already so good and so full, and Reverend Sunshine sort of articulated this perfectly in her share before. Your life is so good that you're kind of resisting, it's that difference between it's too good to be true, which is different than it's so good it's got to be true, right? And so some people, there's a little hesitation about, yeah, things are really good. I don't want to upset the apple cart here. I don't want to, risk things being better. And at the same time, too, people can get really, their lives can be, I'll say, a train wreck on some level. And yet they're very, very committed to that train wreck. They're very committed to that kind of unhealed stuff that is still, kind of driving their life more than what could be healed or what could be better. And of course, we have these pithy aphorisms: what you resist persists, right? Or what you become, what you defend against. And I'm sure I've had, and others have had, this experience where that resistance or defensiveness about that little good that you're having in your life transforms into something that the defensiveness and resistiveness grows, and therefore it begins to encroach on that little good that you're having in your life. And really, the other way around is what's meant to be happening. One is conscious of the good in their life, right as it is right now, and appreciates that good in one's life. And as we say, what you appreciate appreciates, yes? So if you're feeling that good in your life and you appreciate that good in your life, consistently that good in your life is going to grow. And that doesn't, it can be any facet or area of your life. It could be in your relationships. It could be in your health and well-being. It could be in your money and finances. But if you appreciate where you are right now, and therefore you drop into that compassionate conduit right now, saying, I'm in the flow of that good right now, your focus on that will tend to increase it, right? Now, there was an interesting, in reading the Science of Mind magazine this month, there's this great column on spiritual parenting, and it's written by Reverend Dr. Barry Ebert from Mile High Church. And he's giving families tips on how to, make a good learning environment for a lot of children that are learning from home right now because of our pandemic challenge. And it said, and this caught my eye, so I just have to share it with you. It says, a reliable and repeatable schedule helps children relax because they know what's coming. And I just had to stop because I'm like reading this whole thing and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, hang on, time out, right? Because, there's really two sides to this planning. And this is sort of a general thing, right? You could plan for something that you think is good, and that's really attractive, right? To plan for something that's good. Or you could plan for something that's aversive, and that makes it worse. So, where the trigger was for me was like, I did not like school growing up, right? My favorite part of school was recess and lunch. That was it. And literally, I mean, as far back as I can remember, going to school from kindergarten onwards was like a dreadful, full of dread thing every single day. It was like, can I do anything but this? Can I do anything for the next 6-8 hours but be in school? And therefore, and that was the plan, right? The plan was, I'm going to school. So any change to that plan was a very welcome thing. I mean, I could just feel, if it was a snow day, I was over the moon. I was so happy about that, even though you have to make those days up. But for that day, I was really happy. And then I would also look for all those little diversions, like recess or lunch or music class, because I loved that one class, music, that was cool. Or later that turned into band or orchestra or whatever. Loved that. But in anything else, even if there was an assembly, when you came to school and there was an assembly, or if there was a field trip, that was a great diversion too, right? And even went so far as like, even if I had to stay home from school sick, that was better than going to school. So there's this kind of continuum, right, between what is aversive and what is attractive. And those two things, for me, sort of, am I in that conduit or out of that conduit? And it's really not an either or. It's not a binary. Everybody is in that flow. Everybody is a compassionate conduit. You are a compassionate conduit right where you are, right as you are right now. And so am I. It's just how prominent that is in my conscious awareness, how much I'm feeding into that flow of positivity versus being distracted from it, being torn away from it. And it, so the flow might be wide open and gushing, or it might be limited and down to a trickle. The flow is always there, and you are always in that flow to a certain degree. And I know that you're in that flow because at your essence, you are pure spirit. So there is always going to be that shining through you in some way. And again, sometimes that flow is increased as you are being that conduit for others, as you are being that peaceful, compassionate presence. And then sometimes it is for yourself, but both are contributing to that flow. The great unity minister, Eric Butterworth, and I don't know if he coined this term, but this is where I came into an awareness of it, is the quality of affluence means to be in the flow of spirit. And so being a compassionate conduit is that quality of affluence, feeling and being in that flow. And therefore noticing in those moments where I'm feeling, averse to something, averse to some experience, resisting something, defending something, that flow constricts down. Now, is going to school a terrible, dreadful thing? Well, I think most people would agree going to school, there's got to be some positive, whether it's the subjects one is learning or whether it's the interaction it's having with other people. And there is some good in anything that might appear to be not so good. On the other hand, there might be expectations that are limiting about something that is good. So somebody, for example, plans some pleasant event, a get together, a dinner, a vacation, whatever it might be. And at that point of planning, one forms this sort of expectation about the good that's inherent in that plan. Is that the end of it all? Well, in certain cases, if somebody's really committed to that expectation, chances are that expectation's not going to be fully formed, therefore fully met. Versus if somebody is open to that expectation, meaning this or something better, then that experience is going to at least carry that basic expectation and then have the opportunity, the possibility, the actualization of something better. Somebody plans a trip to a certain location. It's like, well, I'm going there because of the natural beauty of it all. And as they go and are communing in nature, they discover that the people there are also that much more interesting and wonderful and fulfilling, and having a rich and fulfilling experience around that. So it is that that balancing act between, an expectation, an equivalent, if you will, in your mind, and then being open to something better. Or in the case of that I explained before about school, where something is so aversive, to being open to something good coming in that experience, even though the idea of it, the step toward it, whatever that might be, I'm resisting on some level. So how does anyone feel about that idea of being in that flow, and whether it's approachable or not approachable, whether it's attractive or not so attractive? No? Yes, George.
I guess I'll speak.
Well, thank you.
This week has been very challenging, as I said to you earlier. And what I realized is that a lot of times when I'm in a challenge, I feel like I'm getting smaller. I constrict, I try to push things out, and I've been trying to practice actually what we did as a meditation today, to try to let things in and to be bigger and to be in that flow and to allow it to live simultaneously with God. And it's made all the difference, really. You know, seeing the talk title this week really helped me because, like, you know, I think this fits what you're saying, is that not trying to be adverse to it, but to allow that flow to live as my life, no matter what's happening. You know, it's like it almost brings tears to my eyes right now. It makes all the difference.
Oh, thank you for that. Anyone else? Yes, Hannah.
Even like an experience just right now with Frankie, with the challenges of having like a younger child and like feeling like, am I a disciplinary, or am I allowing her to do things? And now she's gotten to the, to the age where she's wanting to make her own decisions. Am I limiting her or wanting her to be a certain way, and getting upset that things aren't going like particularly how I want them to be, but then feeling a lot of like gratitude in the moments when it's calm, and like, oh my gosh, reminding myself that I have a healthy child, I have a healthy life, I've got really amazing things that I'm working towards and that are attracted to me now. And so to allow myself to like freak out, and I have to like come back to like, okay, the flow of love, the flow of all of these things that we practice, if I just stay in my head and I get away from like God and believing that I have divine spirit within me at all times, I'm like lost. I don't feel good. It doesn't feel good. So thank you. That was perfect. That was exactly what I needed to hear right when I came on.
Well, thank you, Hannah. Anyone else? Yes, Jan.
Kevin, it seems to match up perfectly with some of the earlier messages and themes for the month, where we talked about Pema Chodron, and we talked about, are you open or are you closed? And that same level of your own ability to look at every situation and see, have I tied myself up with this one, or have I opened myself up with this one? So it really fits that place of appreciation and appreciation. I like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Yes, John.
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite of the school thing. I was I went to school in Nebraska, Polk, Nebraska, which is a real small place to go, and I love to go to school, and my teachers were very nice to me, and I just hated the summers, and because my friends, there are a lot of farmers around the Polk, and the kids would come in from the farm, and so in the summertime, no kids were around, and it's still within me right now.
I wanted to share this quote from Marianne Williamson with you all about the spiritual journey is the unlearning of fear. That's me around school, and the acceptance of love. And of course, the things that you and I can do are these things called spiritual practices that are that unlearning and accepting through meditation, through spiritual study, seeing your practitioner, treating, affirming, praying, journaling, being of sacred service. giving as a spiritual practice, visioning as we had mentioned earlier, and joining together today in a beloved community as we all are right in this moment. And as a, you know, as a sort of a companion to this, what being that compassionate conduit, being in that flow really has to do with becoming more, I will say, conversant, fluent in feeling, right? In the science of mind, we say that God gives to you by way of idea. So this is the way that your conscious mind connects with living spirit. This is the way that your conscious mind lives spirit, or is that compassionate conduit. By the same token, feeling is a way that your soul is communing with God, and feeling those positive feelings are the first and primary answer to your prayer, right? So you speak an affirmation, you treat for yourself, you pray for yourself. The first thing that's shifting that you notice, at least that I notice, is I feel better. I feel differently. And I might even go so far as to say, articulate what those feelings are and affirm them. I feel more love. I feel more peace. I feel more joy. I feel more health and well-being. I feel more creative. I feel more affluent. I feel an ease and a grace in my life. Those are all sort of inward feelings. Now, you know, I've shared with you before that somewhere along the way in my upbringing, very young age, I got this notion that emotions are meant to be stuffed. Now I know what the breadcrumb trail is for that. You know, there was this thing as a child where a parent or an adult would say, you have to get control of your emotions. And my childlike interpretation of that was I needed to stuff all of my emotions down. And of course, at that point, there wasn't in my mind a delineation between what's a feeling and what's an emotion. And the science of mind is something that helps delineate the two by saying, well, a feeling is an inward experience, and the emotion is the choice you make to express that feeling, right? So, you know, having this water ball of emotions and feelings, that's kind of chaotic and not necessarily so constructive or positive. But having a better conception, whether this is a sensory conception or a mental conception, but you know, we say in science of mind that ordered thought is more powerful than chaotic thought. You know, something that is thought that articulated, that's affirmed consistently and definitely will manifest in like form, meaning that'll manifest more consistently and more frequently. Whereas fleeting thoughts have fleeting manifestations. They come and go, they're not consistent, they don't sustain, they don't grow. Well, the same thing is true when we start to look at our feeling system. Again, the more articulate one can be around feeling, the more constructive that body of feeling can be for you, the more positive that feeling can be for you. So, or having some sense of, you know, appreciation or just awareness, conscious awareness of your feeling body, that sensing body, that is, you know, different. If we talk about a bunch of positive feeling that is indeterminate, you might identify that as intuition. But when somebody has an intuition, right, they have some inward sense of something going on that isn't part of conscious thought. If a person is dialoguing around that, eventually or quickly, they will identify it feels like this, you know, and they'll be able to articulate what that feeling is, what that intuitive hit is, where that godness, that goodness within them, within you, within me, is trying to express in a bigger way, is trying to experience in a bigger way than it has in the past. So it is this, you know, getting also away from a purely personal view of this. You know, every I say animal, vegetable, and mineral, is a divine idea, right? There is a spiritual organizing principle about anything and everything. And therefore, all of those things are potentially a compassionate conduit. All of those things, whether it's you or me or a rock or a plant or a flower, they are all in some way a conduit through which spirit is expressing. And it's expressing that spirit uniquely, and it's expressing that spirit completely. And it is up to us, up to you, up to me, to open to that, to be open to that, or to check in with that when when our lives are appearing not to be so full of that, where that conduit, that channel through which you are living spirit, and spirit is living you. I have this other quote from Julia Cameron that I like. And I'll just close with this today. It says, your creative dreams and yearnings come from a divine source. And as you move toward your dreams, you move toward your divinity. And I think in that there can be no greater way of rephrasing spirit living you as you live spirit, being that compassionate conduit. And so it is. Thank you so much.
It is.
And so it is. Thank you, Reverend Kevin. As you can see on the Zoom screen, you're getting lots and lots of love and applause. And on Facebook, I'm sure that folks are also sending up lots of hearts and things of that nature. Thank you so much for that amazing message. It has already touched lives. And as our talk suggests that we are compassionate conduits, we recognize this aspect of our lives for ourselves. I think one of the things that you said today that stood out to me again was just asking myself, am I a compassionate conduit? And what are the steps that I get to look at and to be or to take, so that I'm that for myself and then that for others as well. So thank you. And thank you to all of you who contributed as well.